opportunities help organizations to hear more of what matters from their people. After all, no strategy, change initiative, or acquisition can succeed without a motivated and engaged workforce. David is also a thoroughly nice chap, as we say in England, and really does know his stuff. So without further ado, please welcome to the Power Hour, David Bellamy.
Thank you very much for that. I'm terrific, thank you. Thank you for that very warm and kind introduction. Good to be back. I'm going to quickly, there we go, get into presentation mode here. We are doing a little bit of swivel chair here, so forgive us. I'm going to be, if you hear me say next slide, it's because we've got dual drivers. As Matt said, I'm David Bellamy, founder and CEO of Harkn. I'm delighted to be back at another Power Hour. Thanks to Matt and the team at Inspiring Workplaces for giving us the platform to share our perspectives on listening. And I guess without further ado, welcome to the age of the listening organization. So Amy, next slide, please. First, a quick quote from Satya Nadella of Microsoft. The future belongs to those who learn, listen, and adapt. The listening organization doesn't only adapt to change, it anticipates it by paying close attention to the subtle, often unspoken signals from within and around it. Now, we all know Microsoft, but maybe not everybody understands the transformation that Satya has brought about there. And they're famous for being a learning organization. And as this quote makes clear, Satya fully understands that being a learning organization relies on first becoming a listening organization. Next. And these two are going to go really quickly, aiming on to the next one. But before we talk about the listening organization, a quick provocation, or maybe not so quick, actually. So why do we listen to employees? Why do organizations listen? Well, look, there's a lot of text on here, and please, you by all means read it if you can see it. But I'm going to read through it because it sort of sets the scene for some stuff I want to talk about in a minute. But so we listen to employees because it's about enhancing employee engagement. So listening to employees fosters a sense of inclusion and value, which in turn boosts engagement. Engaged employees, more productive, motivated, committed, etc. And a Gallup study found that companies with high employee engagement experienced 21% higher profitability and 17% higher productivity. That should have been profitability and productivity, if in case I said the same word twice. Now, full transparency, this is not, this is Google search stuff, right? So if you search why should we listen and what's the importance of listening, this is the sort of stuff that comes up, and I'm using it deliberately because it's sort of setting the scene. It's about improving employee well-being. So when employees feel heard, it positively impacts their mental and emotional well-being, and this reduces stress and burnout, leading to a healthier and more resilient workforce. And proactively addressing well-being can prevent crises and reduce absenteeism, ultimately saving costs associated with healthcare and lost productivity. So we listen because it's about driving innovation, and employees are often closest to day-to-day operations and can provide invaluable insights and ideas for improvement. Encouraging open dialogue and feedback leads to innovative solutions that drive business growth. Companies that listen to their employees are 4.6 times more likely to be innovative and agile. Retaining talent. Retaining talent is crucial in competitive job markets. Employees who feel their voices are heard are also more likely to stay with the company. And we know that high turnover rates are costly and disruptive, enhancing organizational performance. Listening to employees helps identify and address issues before they escalate, provides real-time insights into the organizational climate, allowing for timely and effective interventions. And according to HBR, companies with a listening culture have a 72% higher employee retention rates and 70% better team performance. Building a culture of trust and belonging. The trust is the foundation of any successful organization. And when employees feel that their voices count and their opinions are valued, it builds trust and fosters a positive organizational culture. And trust translates into high cooperation, collaboration, and a willingness to go the extra mile, something that we know all companies love from their employees. And Finally, on this list, and there could have been many other things, of course, but informing strategic decisions. Employee feedback provides critical data that can inform strategic decision-making. Understanding the on-the-ground realities and sentiment can guide leadership in making more informed and effective decisions that align with the workforce's needs and aspirations. So listening at work is not just about hearing what people have got to say, and it's certainly not just about that sort of active listening that we like to describe in leaders. Actually, it's a critical component of building healthy, productive, and engaged workplaces. So we go on to the next one, Amy. So how effective are current listening approaches when it comes to supporting those reasons, right? So first, how do most organizations listen? And the most commonly used approach for organizations to listen to their staff is still the employee engagement survey or the employee opinion survey, depending on the way your organization describes it. And in most cases, this is still annual. And why is that? Well, probably because the industry has done a really good job at convincing people that the only way you could possibly listen at scale is through a big survey, or indeed several smaller ones, as we're seeing from the sort of the emerging and rapidly growing pulse survey market. But if you sort of agree with the sentiment of the reasons that we listen that I shared a moment ago, and that's partly why I read them out in the way I did, then the one thing you're almost likely, or you're almost certain to deduce, is that periodic surveys alone are a lousy approach to deliver those outcomes. And the next bit, I want to spend a bit of time telling you why I think that. We could go on, Amy. Now you have a PDF, you've got, my little reveal, which is sort of animation of crossing out each one of these things as we go through, has been ruined by the PDF, which shows you that I'm saying we're rubbish at all these things, but let me tell you why, right? So let's start with the employee engagement piece. And in fact, an error on my part here, just a version control thing. So the headline should not say, why do we listen to employees? It should say, does the way we currently listen deliver these benefits, right? So enhancing employee engagement. Just a reminder, so listening to employees fosters that sense of inclusion and value, which turns in turn boosts engagement. And we heard about, the higher profitability and productivity. But the reality here is, sadly, very few people feel heard in surveys. And we all know this feeling, right? We respond to countless questions at a moment in time, usually in the form of Likert scales, and then we wait. Right? And companies then have to determine what's most important. They'll do this normally by shortlisting the questions that perform least well, the squeakiest wheels. And let's be honest, there'll probably be a degree of working out which one's going to be the easiest to address. But we're also not getting to talk about the things that we consider most important. We're having questions determined by our employer or indeed the survey provider. And so we're not getting to share the things that we want to talk about. And that leaves us feeling unheard. And I'm going to talk a bit more about reasons and manifestations of this feeling unheard in the workplace. And we also shouldn't, at this point, when we talk about enhancing employee engagement, we shouldn't ignore the fact that this has been the dominant approach, using employee engagement or opinion surveys to solicit feedback and views of employees. This has been the dominant approach for 20 plus years, into the 90s, aren't we? And engagement isn't getting any better. So something must be wrong. So does it help employee engagement? No. Improving employee well-being. So a quick reminder of what we said there. When employees feel heard, it positively impacts their mental and emotional well-being. This reduces stress and burnout, leading to a healthier, more resilient workforce. Proactively addressing well-being can prevent crises and reduce absenteeism. So we already know that employees don't feel heard. And we know that despite surveys being used for decades, stress and burnout are getting worse across the board. The reality is that when it comes to well-being, there isn't a survey that exists that can proactively support well-being issues as they manifest in individuals in the workplace. At very best, they can probably indicate systemic issues in the workplace, but certainly not how the environment impacts individuals, and most importantly, where support is needed right now. You have to be, you'd have to have a very targeted survey delivered at a very specific moment in time to catch somebody. And that, when it comes to improving employee well-being, that this is a big cross. Driving innovation. And a reminder of what we said, employees are often closest to the day-to-day operations and can provide invaluable insights and areas for improvement. And encouraging open dialogue and feedback can lead to innovative solutions that drive business growth. Right, so employees are absolutely the closest to the day-to-day operations. But when did a survey ever ask you about the specific technologies, processes, or customer interactions that you're experiencing on a day-to-day basis? Right, and so we're missing a huge chunk of information about the things that drive what's happening for us daily at work. And the key thing in that previous sentence as well is the role of open dialogue and its role in sense making, exploring our collective understanding of what's happening, sharing our views, experiences, and allowing the process to take our frustrations, which is often, let's be honest, if we're sharing feedback about our day-to-day experiences, frustrations can be one of the things that we share. They're not coming fully formed ideas, and this is what we should improve. They're coming as this is what's bloody difficult today. And this collective sense making that happens through dialogue, open dialogue, helps us to elaborate those into something that's much more actionable. So driving innovation. Now retaining, that sound effect was, I didn't do that when I was practicing this earlier on, so that's a new thing. Retaining talent. Retaining top talent, crucial in a competitive job market. And the important bit here, employees who feel their voices are heard are more likely to stay with the company. So we know the cost and the implications of high turnover, but feeling heard in this instance is about feeling valued. And I think the really important thing when it comes to the organizational approach to listening through surveys is this, right? How does listening once in a while convey that your opinions, your experiences, your voice is valued? It simply can't. There is no good relationship in our lives where we're only interested in the other person's views, opinions, experiences once or twice a year. I mean, Wendy from our team, came up with a brilliant analogy where you describe that employee survey process in the form of having that dialogue with your significant other at home. I value our relationship, and I really want to hear what you feel about things. So here are 50 carefully curated questions, or perhaps given Mike Klein is up next, we should talk about the 12 carefully curated questions. But the referring to your latest article, Mike, that is of course not today's talk. But the point is, they don't work in that way. It's not a good signifier of value in a relationship at all to be only interested in what people have got to say when we provoke the question. Enhancing organizational performance. So listening to employee helps identify and address issues before they escalate, providing real-time insights into organizational climate. And again, I don't need to continue reading that for everybody to know that that's not what surveys do. Timeliness counts here, right? Identifying and addressing issues before they escalate is virtually impossible with periodic surveys. What you stumble upon at a moment in time, a bit like the well-being thing, is one thing, but you're going to miss countless other things. The nuance of day-to-day life is lost when we're only asking questions once in a while. So are we improving performance by listening every now and again? No, we're absolutely not. So continuous building a culture of trust and belonging. Trust is the foundation of any successful organization. When employees feel their voices count and their opinions are valued, it builds trust and fosters a positive organizational culture. Trust is key, absolutely key. Surveys don't build trust, they break trust. And this is, and I should say, of course, the mechanism surveys in themselves, they have a place in a listening toolkit, but they can't be the centerpiece. And this is largely because we know that most people feel that nothing will change as a result of them taking part in the survey. And part of that is about the fact that only some things change, from that list of many things that it could be. But moreover, I think, again, the cycle that we're in with survey response, wait, organization decides what it does and then makes some change. And most organizations try to do things with it. But when change does occur, it's not recognized as being about the feedback that I gave. Because unless, as I said earlier, unless my response happens to coincide with enough other people's views that makes it onto the list of the squeakiest wheels, then I'm not really feeling heard at all. And because there's a significant delay between survey and action, the world's moved on and the context has changed, and we're all thinking about other things right now. Few people feel heard. Trust is not enhanced. And one other thing to say on this subject of trust and whether they are helping build a culture of trust or belonging, you can't go near TikTok or Reels, which tells you a little bit about how I spend too much of my spare time, without seeing yet another meme about surveys not being trustworthy or anonymous, not being safe to speak up, and that really should be telling us something. And finally, informing strategic decisions. Employee feedback provides critical data that can inform strategic decision making. Understanding on the ground realities and sentiment can guide leadership in making more informed and effective decisions that align with the workforce's needs and aspirations. So completely agree with that sentence, but the crucial issue here for me is understanding on the ground realities and sentiment, which I'm sorry, it is hardly ever truly reflected in survey questions or responses. And I'm sure everybody would agree with that. We don't get to understand day-to-day life through surveys. So as a primary listening tool, the survey is at best box ticking, at worst sort of a confirmation bias informing vanity exercise, right? And that's pretty strong, but it skirts over nuance and the realities of life inside a modern organization, and we think that really needs to change. Amy, if we could go on to the next, and just a quick quote. So the most basic of all human needs is to understand and be understood. And the best way to understand people is to listen to them. So let's talk about the listening organization. And I promise I am nearly done now because we're 16 minutes in and I was told I had 20. The world has changed. So what is the listening organization, right? The world has changed beyond recognition. We're still using the tools we were using before. We're using the tools from the 90s, and the world's changed dramatically since 2020 in particular. Not only has it changed, it's continuing to change. I think most people would agree that we are in a change, sort of a change pattern now that is faster and more demanding than ever before. And I know everybody says that, but most of the thinkers that I place a lot of value in would be into that camp now, saying that things are getting faster and more complex and more uncertain. And all of that puts more pressure on companies and the people within them. And so this sort of idea of a listening organization becomes increasingly important. And I just want to share some things about what a listening organization feels like. So, the listening organization is one in which employee views are considered crucial to understanding what's happening on the ground, that collective and dynamic sense-making activity. And that is absolutely about listening all the time, not just sometimes. We can't be looking for moments of truth. We can't be looking for key moments in employees' life cycles. We can't be looking for, cherry-picked moments to listen to people. We have to listen all the time and understand what on earth is going on. And we need to do that in a way that is going to, get people engaged in understanding where we are right now, what's the context and what needs to move. In listening organizations, the value of genuinely engaging with employee experiences, ideas, and feedback is absolutely understood. Organizations sees this as foundational to organizational learning and growth. And if you want to become, as we said right at the beginning, if you want to become a learning organization like Microsoft, then you must first become a listening organization. Feedback mechanisms are dynamic, inclusive, and responsive. They're live and continuous sources of insight that foster continuous dialogue between stakeholders of your business at all levels and drive continuous improvement cycles. No more you said, we did, but an ongoing conversation where insight drives iterative change. Every voice is proactively sought. We're looking to hear, understand, value, and respect what everybody in our organization can bring. And really important here is, this means accepting that psychological safety isn't something you simply declare in your organization. It's safe to speak up. We want to hear everybody's opinion. We have to accept that. It's not as simple as that. Feedback mechanisms need to accommodate everybody's need for provision of safety. You need to give us, if you want to hear my views, then we have to accept that employees need certain conditions like anonymity to provide their views honestly and safely. And the last point here is that leadership understands that its role is to create the conditions in which people can thrive and where good sense-making, decision-making, and action-taking can occur across the organization. This is not about leaders doing all the sense-making and all the decision-making and the people on the front line doing the action-taking that results. We have to get better at iterating this stuff as a collective. And that really, again, starts with listening. And I want to just finish with one final quote from Brené Brown. The age of the listening organization is upon us. Sorry, Amy, if I didn't say click on, please click on. And it's not just about gathering data or feedback. It's about understanding the story behind the data. It's about empathy, understanding, and most importantly, taking action based upon what you've heard. It's about creating a culture where every voice matters and every voice contributes to the shape of the future. And I think that's something I hope you would have heard I've covered today. I've done a fair bit of bashing of the way that we listen, and I know that there are broader systems in place in organizations, but I've centered on the one that most organizations use primarily to listen. And yeah, that's it. So that's 20 minutes and 30 seconds